Well, we have an investor witness on the stand today who never met Balwani. Do you think that's going to matter to a jury? I'm going to give you some of the highlights of the testimony today and also some scheduling updates. And you know me, we're going to take a look at some of the exhibits. So hi there, I'm Michele Hagan. I'm a legal analyst and a former prosecutor. You may recognize me because I provided a lot of legal analysis on the Elizabeth Holmes case, who is the co-defendant and the alleged co-conspirator of Sunny Balwani. Sunny Balwani was the COO of Theranos, and he's being tried separately for the same 12 counts of fraud that Elizabeth Holmes was. All right, so this video is simply my opinion, and it's for education information, so please do leave your analysis. And thank you to all of those of you who have subscribed to my channel and for supporting my work and for contributing, donating to support these videos. It's a lot of work. And if you want to support the videos, please see I'll put a PayPal link in the description box below the video. All right, so let me give you let me do the scheduling updates first. Just to give you the heads up, the case is currently scheduled out for trial through the end of June. So what does that indicate to me? That indicates I suspect the defense is probably going to be putting on a case, probably with more than several witnesses, because I think the prosecution is going to be wrapped up by next week. Because who do we have left? I think we have one investor witness left, and then we have the patient counts. And in the Holmes, those 4 patient counts. And in the Holmes case, the patient testimony, I think, was only 2 days. So I suspect the prosecution is going to wrap up their case, and the defense is probably going to start their case the following week. So scheduled out through the end of June, and again, that could be even more dates. We could be going into July. I don't know. But anyway, so this is day 24 of the Sunny Balwani case. So the highlights. The investor witness on the stand today, so far, is Chris Lucas. Chris Lucas is the son of Don Lucas, a well-known venture capitalist in Silicon Valley. Chris Lucas, his firm was called the Black Diamond Ventures, and they invested in Theranos twice. They invested $2 million in 2006, and they invested $5.4 million in 2013, which is the count in the indictment that Sunny Balwani and Elizabeth Holmes was charged with. But what's interesting is that in the Holmes case, the testimony from Chris Lucas, this investor witness, from Brian Tolbert, and from Alan Eisenman, the Holmes jury, was unable to come to a decision. So that was a hung jury on each one of those counts. So the question is, are they going to convict Balwani of these 3 counts? And in this, with Chris Lucas, he never met Balwani. You think a jury's going to care about that? All right. So please do leave a comment. Tell me what your analysis is. Hit that subscribe button. All right. So he said that Elizabeth Holmes was very guarded with how much information she provided. And the financial information in particular was minimal. And he said that the Theranos level of secrecy was also out of the ordinary compared to other startups. Okay, so couldn't the defense argue, what are you doing investing in a company? Okay, just my opinion. Investing in a company where you are getting a CEO who's guarded with giving you information. You're getting financial information that he describes as minimal. And he comments about the level of secrecy. So couldn't the defense argue, what are you doing investing in this company? And why did you invest? And did you do your due diligence? Because in the Holmes case, that's what the defense argued. They tried to portray some of these investor witnesses as sophisticated investors. In other words, they didn't do their due diligence. So I guess therefore it's their fault? I don't know. But the jury didn't convict Elizabeth Holmes on those counts or on this count relating to Chris Lucas. Okay, so Lucas said in 2013 his firm invested millions. That 5.4, I'll tell you, looking at the indictment, and it's count 4, 5.349,900,000. So approximately, 5.3 million on December 31st in 2013. Black Diamond Ventures invested that amount of money in Theranos. Okay. So he said that they invested despite not having the information he typically would have. Okay, again, because the defense say, well, you didn't do your due diligence. But he did say they invested because of the Walgreens deal and his relationship with Elizabeth. I believe she was earnest, truthful with what she wanted to accomplish. Okay, well, couldn't the defense say, well, the reason Chris Lucas and Black Diamond Ventures invested in Theranos had nothing to do with Elizabeth Holmes or Sunny Balwani or any representations they made. They were banking on the Walgreens deal. They were banking on the confidence that Walgreens had. Possibly. I don't know. I'm just guessing here. And he said his relationship with Elizabeth. I believe she was earnest, truthful with what she wanted to accomplish. Well, he didn't say, based on the statements she made. He said because he believed she was earnest, truthful. Well, that doesn't say anything about Sunny Balwani, and he's the one who's on trial in this case. All right, so again, leave me your analysis. Tell me what you think. Lucas said he doesn't recall ever meeting Sunny Balwani. He doesn't recall ever speaking to Sunny Balwani. And he said that Elizabeth Holmes never talked about Sunny Balwani. You think a jury's going to convict when the defendant, the investor never met the defendant? I don't know. A prosecutor pointed out, the prosecution pointed out that there was an email chain where Balwani and Lucas were both on that email. Is that going to be enough? The fact that Balwani is CC'd in an email? You never met Balwani. I don't know. Maybe that's what the jury considered in the Holmes case. I think it was more towards holding these certain investors to a higher standard of doing due diligence, etc. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Then on cross-examination, what does Balwani's counsel do? Points out that Lucas said he knew Holmes and Balwani were dating. Okay, why would you bring that up? I'll get to that in a second. He knew that they were dating before that 2013 investment, that count for that 5.4 million that was invested in Theranos. He also said that he knew that Balwani had successfully sold his previous company before joining Theranos. Okay, why is the defense pointing out? Why do you think? Why is the defense pointing out that Balwani and Holmes were dating? Well, maybe the defense is going to argue Sunny was because of his relationship with Elizabeth, he was basically, just doing what she told him to do. He didn't want to jeopardize the relationship, maybe. Maybe he couldn't see clearly because he was dating her. I don't know. What do you think? And then to bring out the point that Balwani was he successfully sold his other company. Maybe the defense is going to say, well, he didn't defraud anybody then. And maybe that, I don't know, maybe they're going to say that he's a successful businessman. And if he had been given the reins, the defense has argued several times, even in their opening, it's her company. She was in control. He was basically just following. He was the COO. Maybe he was the duped investor, just like the rest of them. I don't know. What do you think? Maybe the fact that he was successful before shows that he was a successful business person. But maybe that cuts both ways, because maybe the prosecutions could say, well, if he was a successful business owner, he had a successful company, maybe he should have known that there were problems. I don't know. All right, then they also tried to get into, the defense tried to get into the fact that Lucas, if Lucas knew that Balwani loaned $12 million to Theranos in 2009 to stay afloat during the recession. In other words, he bailed Elizabeth out. and that he tried to get the defense attorney tried to get Lucas to acknowledge his initial investment would have disappeared, but for Balwani loaning Theranos that amount of money. What did the judge do? The prosecution objected. The judge sustained the objection. So what does that mean? When a judge sustains an objection, and again, it's Friday, I can't speak on Fridays. When they sustain an objection, that means the jury isn't supposed to consider it. They're not supposed to consider, and the defense can't get into asking any more of the questions, right? So the prosecution objects. Whatever the witness says, the jury is supposed to disregard. All right. Well, I think what the defense was trying to get to that point is that Lucas knew back in 2009 that there was a problem with this company, right? Because why was Balwani loaning the $12 million to Theranos? To keep it afloat. So Lucas knew there were problems. Maybe they could say, I don't know. So we'll see. We'll see how the cross-examination continues. But probably what's next for next week, and again, next week it's going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. I believe we have trial. Yeah. So it'll probably be the patient counts. And like I said earlier, I think they're going to be, prosecution are probably wrapping up next week. And then we'll get to the defense's case. So I wanted to point out to you, I'm just looking at some of the notes I have here. Let's go ahead and look at some of these exhibits that could tie Balwani, right? Lucas said never met Balwani, no conversations, no representations. I'm sure that's what the defense is going to say. Balwani had a successful company, and that Elizabeth Holmes was the one who made the representations. Okay, and I want to direct you to the couple of the videos I did earlier, which is what Elizabeth told the investors. And if you go listen to that video, Chris Lucas, this witness, is on that call. Okay? And I believe he asked one or two of those questions on the call. So go ahead and watch the video I did, what Elizabeth Holmes told investors. And then also you might want to look at did the defense do any damage? And that's the DeVos video I did, and that relates to what Lisa Peterson relied upon. And again, the defense is trying to kick out these counts. If they could show that Chris Lucas invested for some other reason, or that he never met Balwani, then possibly the defense could get one or more of these jurors to find that Balwani wasn't liable, wasn't guilty or responsible for this, right? So maybe they could hang on that count, or maybe they could acquit on that count, or maybe, they could convict if the prosecution meets their burden of proof. All right, so let's go ahead and look at some of these exhibits that I think tie Elizabeth Holmes, right? But, it's a conspiracy case too. And Elizabeth Holmes, the alleged co-conspirator. So here is, and I wanted to show you the evidence, the proof that Black Diamond invested the $5.3 million in Theranos. So here's just a couple pages from the stock purchase agreement. And I will get to, here's the master signature page. And this relates to Chris Lucas, managing director of Black Diamond. You can see right here. We each hereby agree to be a party, and this is the signature page on the purchase agreement. I acknowledge and agree that I have invested the following aggregate dollar value, $5.349,900,000, exactly what it says in the indictment as to count 4. Purchased 356,660 shares of Theranos C1 stock, signed by Christopher Lucas, managing director, on December 31st, 2013. So that relates to count 4 in the indictment, and it's signed by Elizabeth Holmes, not Sunny Balwani. And if you look at when Lisa Peterson testified, those emails, they were with Lisa Peterson and Sunny Balwani, right? Because Sunny was giving wiring instructions to Lisa Peterson and to the RDK, the DeVos family fund, as to wiring instructions. That came from Balwani. But it doesn't look like Balwani, according to Chris Lucas, he didn't have any contact with Balwani. So this is Elizabeth Holmes. Now let's look at the next thing. Here's a shareholder letter that Elizabeth Holmes sent out. And it's Chris Lucas, so he got a copy of this from Black, and it was the subject of Theranos, and it was a letter from shareholder letter that Elizabeth Holmes sent out. And here are the representations that were made. Dear shareholder, it's with great pleasure that I write to inform you of our upcoming consumer launch. As you all know, we have been working in stealth mode for several years to prepare for this. It's a shareholder letter from Elizabeth Holmes to Black Diamond Ventures and to other prospective investors, including Chris Lucas. With this launch, and this relates to the launch of Walgreens, which is what Chris Lucas testified, relating to the Walgreens deal, we will begin sending information to our shareholders. And then I thought it was kind of interesting. We have been preparing a new website, releasing incremental content over it. Our first new website content is up today. Our board is publicly listed on the site, blah, blah, blah. And then I thought this was interesting. In the event you are contacted regarding Theranos, we have a dedicated PR team set up to handle all those inquiries. Please relay all calls and requests for information directly to them. Interesting. So in other words, if any of these clients of Black Diamond or Chris Lucas had any calls from the press regarding Theranos, they were to direct them to the PR team at Theranos. So here again, Elizabeth Holmes, one could argue she's trying to control the narrative around and any questions around Theranos' launch with Walgreens and Theranos in general. It says, for your reference, we will not be granting interviews until we make our commercial announcements and have the information in those announcements. So it's signed, with best regards, Elizabeth Holmes, not Sunny Balwani. All right, so let's look at the information that Chris Lucas got and the Black Diamond Venture clients. This is from the annual meeting. It was a presentation deck. I call it the binder of information, but it's basically the PowerPoint presentation that prospective investors were given from Theranos. It says, and, Chris Lucas was CC'd on this. You don't see Balwani mentioned. Dear Black Diamond investor, please find the Black Diamond Ventures confidential and proprietary portfolio. And this is relating to Theranos. And I covered some of this in the previous video, but let me flip this around so you can see it. Okay, so here is, the slide deck that Chris Lucas was given and Black Diamond Venture clients. Talks about who's on the board, right? And then it gets to Sunny Balwani here and describes his experience as an entrepreneur and a computer scientist. Sunny joined Theranos after dropping out of a computer science program at Stanford. Where have we heard that before? He received his MBA at UC Berkeley, his undergraduate at UT Austin. Sunny began his career at Lotus Development, blah, blah, blah. He worked at Microsoft. Later started his own company in the e-commerce space. And he is currently serves as the president and the COO of Theranos. Okay, this is information that Chris Lucas got. But what were the representations made in here? Again, here's the nanotainer. At Theranos, we can perform our lab tests on samples as small as 1/1000th the size of a typical blood draw. Was that true? Was that fraudulent? At Theranos can analyze smaller samples than previously possible with speed and the highest levels of accuracy. Is that true? These representations, can they tie them to Balwani? Is he responsible for this information that's sent out? Did he send it out to Chris Lucas? All right, this is just further articles. Okay, let me show you this last exhibit here. So this is that investor call that took place on December 20th. And if you go back to the video I did, you can watch what Elizabeth Holmes told investors, because Chris Lucas is on that call and Balwani's not on that call. Okay, and this email again wasn't sent out by Balwani. It was CC to Chris Lucas and to all the people at Black Diamond investors. It's a conference call, but it does have, representations regarding the few tiny droplets of blood, revolutionized medicine, talking about their stock split, etc. That information, I think, is what the defense is going to argue, is that came from Elizabeth Holmes, not from Sunny Balwani. So, what do you think? Do you think a jury, the Holmes jury didn't convict on this count relating to the testimony and the investment of Chris Lucas and Black Diamond? Chris Lucas is now testified. He's never met Balwani. Elizabeth Holmes never talked about Balwani. What do you think? Do you think that's going to be enough? And also, do you think they raised any reasonable doubt regarding the reason why Chris Lucas invested the $5.9 million in Theranos? Did it have to do with the Walgreens deal? Did it have to do with him believing that Elizabeth Holmes was earnest and truthful? Based on her representations? I mean, where's the evidence against Balwani? Or whether the slide deck, etc., the conversations he had with Elizabeth Holmes, the investor call that he had with Elizabeth Holmes, he relied on those representations? I mean, what was the investment decision based on? Was it based on the fraudulent misrepresentations by Holmes and Balwani? Could it be argued it was based on something else? So you let me know. Simply my opinion. I'm curious. What's your analysis? Please do leave a comment, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification. And if you want to donate and contribute and value my videos and support my videos, I'll leave a PayPal link in the description below the video. Thank you so much for watching.